We learn from an early age that we should become good people. At home and at school, kindness is always considered a virtue worthy of praise. Yet one might wonder about this at least once. Have you ever helped someone and then felt a different emotion deep inside your heart? One day, a person walking down the street encounters someone who has collapsed. Countless thoughts rush through his mind. He wonders if helping is truly the right thing to do, if he might be misunderstood for the wrong reasons, or if passing by would lead to criticism since people are watching. After all those considerations, he sometimes extends a helping hand. On the surface, it appears to be a genuinely good choice. However, if we reflect on the actual motive behind that choice, the story looks different. Schopenhauer offered an intriguing perspective on morality. He said that morality can be a convenient weapon for the strong, yet it may become a shackle for the weak. For some, it serves as a tool to control or manipulate people, while for others, it becomes an obligation that leads to criticism, if not followed. When we ponder this statement, we begin to question whether the widespread value called morality in our society truly exists for everyone. Sometimes, one also wonders, can we say that helping someone always stems from a pure heart? If nobody finds out about the help given, if there is no recognition at all, would we still act the same way? The reputation of being a good person can sometimes function as a strategy for obtaining desired opportunities. The outward, moral image becomes a far more powerful weapon than we might expect. Looking back on history, morality has often served as a means of control, devised by those in power. They say we must be honest and considerate, and these virtues look beautiful on the surface. But behind them hides the duplicity of expecting others to adhere, while they themselves quietly step aside. Furthermore, from the public's perspective, if one deviates from moral standards, the social cost can be high. So, it seems natural to comply. Then we begin to wonder, is such morality truly for others? Or is it ultimately for oneself? On the other hand, there is a viewpoint that good deeds can indeed come from genuine sincerity. Some say they simply cannot pass by someone in difficulty without helping. For them, pure compassion takes precedence over reputation. Yet another person might admit that, deep down, they hold an expectation that such good deeds will earn them a positive evaluation. Thus, the way we see morality is always divided into two paths. Yet this does not mean that morality is always a deception or hypocrisy. Some indeed insist that we need teachings about helping one another to keep the world functioning. However, if we examine closely whether such organizations or authorities who proclaim these values truly follow every rule, we find it is not that common. Morality appears to be an ideal value in principle, but in practice, it often comes to us altered by various forces at play. Let us think carefully. We have heard countless times since childhood that we must be honest. Yet upon entering society, we see that people who skillfully adjust their words and action according to the situation gain more opportunities than those who reveal everything frankly. It is not uncommon to find cases where people cannot bring unfair practices to light for fear of consequences. The heart of the matter lies in why this happens, and how we are supposed to accept it. Let us take a brief example from daily life. When children work on a group project at school, some work diligently while others barely contribute. Yet, when the presentation ends, All of them receive the same praise of having done well. Those who worked sincerely might feel unfairness deep inside. Or some students pretend not to notice and do a half-hearted job, thinking it is enough to fool the teacher. This situation is a small glimpse of the practical contradictions of morality. Even in the workplace, a similar pattern emerges. Those who always greet others cheerfully on the surface and pretend to be considerate often prosper. Meanwhile, those who silently follow the rules and work honestly remain unnoticed. Society as a whole shouts, "Let us all be kind together." But beneath the surface, everyone has their own interests and agendas. In the end, it is often the person who skillfully creates a moral image who gains recognition. Nevertheless, people generally want to believe they are moral beings. If someone says, "Why are you so selfish?" most would become angry or feel wronged. This is because they perceive themselves as good. Yet in reality, selfishness seems to be a natural trait humans possess from birth. When a baby is hungry or uncomfortable, it cries so that nearby adults rush over. That action is not out of consideration for others, but rather to fulfill its own needs. Even in adulthood, that instinct does not entirely disappear. However, social rules and moral judgments lead people to pretend to be altruistic or to yield. Yet upon closer inspection, there is often a desire for a greater reward lurking within. Money is not something that buys what we want. It is a power that makes us buy even what we do not want. Reading such a sentence can make us pause for a moment. We wonder if our actions are truly freely chosen, or if there is some invisible force at work. Morality can be seen in a similar context. We need to ponder whether we are being good because we genuinely want to, or if we are merely acting that way due to the pressure that we must be good. Of course, many believe that pure altruism does indeed exist. Some emphasize the goodness of humanity, claiming that collaboration and consideration lead to greater happiness for all. According to their argument, helping someone can undoubtedly make life better for everyone. However, the opposing side sees that we cannot ignore the small interests and calculations beneath the surface of such actions. Finding balance between these two views may be the key to living wisely in the real world. Looking at history, those in power have always established a moral justification and then demanded submission from the masses. Do not lie. Be sincere. Sacrifice yourself for your country. These directives are familiar. Yet the public had no way of truly knowing what deals were made behind closed doors by those holding power, nor how far they actually kept ethical standards. Ultimately, we need to think about whom the morality we have inherited was really designed to serve. This does not mean it is fine to be immoral. What is truly crucial is how we regard and use morality. If we follow it blindly, we risk incurring losses. On the other hand, if we do not manage our moral image at all, we may be excluded from society. The key lies in the ability to actively wear the mask of morality. We must know how to appear good in the right situations, and also how to keep our distance when necessary. To do this, we first need to ask, for whom is morality truly set as a standard? A company might overemphasize diligence to its employees, precisely to maximize their utility. A state might demand patriotism because it becomes problematic. If individuals place their own interests above those of the nation. On the other hand, individuals can also use this morality strategically to protect themselves. For instance, by showing kindness to coworkers once or twice, one can increase the likelihood of receiving help from them later. Although it may appear altruistic on the surface, in reality, it can be a long-term calculation of self-interest. One cannot outright condemn such behavior. We all need to survive and grow, so we acknowledge the rules of the world to some extent, and try to find the best way within them. Most people tend to open their hearts to those who project a moral impression. Hence, even while meticulously calculating personal interest, a person who smiles and speaks kindly can often gain trust and opportunities. We could label this as mere hypocrisy. But from another angle, it is one of many social skills. The real problem arises when this hypocrisy grows so extreme that it exploits others or distorts the truth. At that stage, real victims inevitably appear. On the other hand, if we look at it in reverse, those who are completely insensitive to morality may end up discarded or isolated from society. If someone never considers others and always pursues personal gain in an openly selfish way, nobody wants that person around. Ultimately, we are neither entirely altruistic beings nor purely selfish creatures. In the process of balancing these two aspects, we need to use the concept of morality as a tool. Let us use an analogy. In a basketball game, a player who never commits a foul against the opposing team is not necessarily respected. Rather, to achieve a victory, a certain level of offense and strategy is required. On the other hand, excessive fouls can bring severe penalties from the referee and the rules. Thus, abiding by order while seeking one's best advantage within that framework seems to be the most sensible approach. In this sense, it is often far more advantageous to build social relationships by employing a strategy of appearing kind rather than actually being kind. Some might argue, are you telling us to ignore those with truly good hearts? This is by no means an attempt to belittle the value of those who genuinely care for others. However, because our society does not run solely on benevolence, we need to adopt a more realistic attitude. If there were no external gaze, we would need a moment to ask ourselves what choice we would make. We should consider whether our intention is truly born from a pure heart, or if we are acting this way, even partially to maintain our social reputation or alleviate guilt. Perhaps both motives are mixed together.